Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke, and today's guest is Paul Quentin. He is a teacher, channel, and healer, and his work involves books that are channeled through spirits' voices to assist humanity in shifting into New Earth's golden age. In this episode, we'll discuss that shift as well as alignment modality. Paul, welcome to the program.
Lovely to be on, John. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. It's great to have you here. We hear a lot these days about a shift in consciousness, 3D to 5D, Ascension, and things like that. Is the new Earth's golden age the same thing, or is it something different?
Yes, it's been explained to me as something different. And I've actually started to work with new awareness, and it's actually integrating very well. It's working with my clients, my students, and it's really profoundly simplified the process of transformation. So coming back to 4D Ascension, as you said, 5D, sorry. I think there was a story going around that the reptilian beings operate on a fourth dimensional existence, which in some ways they do. This is what I've heard through the New Age movement. This is not something I agree with.
You're saying you don't agree with it?
No. I'm just explaining why I believe this 5D paradigm is so strong at the moment. Basically, it was explained to me that human beings had to go to a different, higher dimension so they could stop having that control net from this reptilian thing. So at the end of the day, it was explained to me very quickly. It wasn't in alignment with how I felt, but I believe that this is the reason why they're talking about it. Okay, just to simplify. I don't even use fourth dimension. When I started working with spirit in the channeling process, they said it was a realm of consciousness that already exists around us because we are a holographic imprint of our soul body walking this earth. And so that energy can sit there unconsciously. Basically, what they were saying is we're already ascended because we're multidimensional, interdimensional. So we exist in all planes of consciousness. So ascension really is not something that is perceived from the non-physical. So what they were saying is that we have to drop the soul back into the human body consciously. So it's awakened whilst walking in a physical body, as we were in our light cycles, ancient Egypt, Atlantis, all those sort of ancient continents and cultures. And we would be in connection with the non-physical on a day-to-day basis. You would see it, you close, they'd be there physically, in your imagination as well. This is how they built all the structures and stuff and how we became part of that thriving galactic trade. What they want us to do is not ascend anywhere. Is actually be more human. Everyone's trying to get away from being human. They all want to connect to other planets,
Can't really blame them for that.
Well, that's another story, but yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, we probably will. It is something I hear a lot. So you said it was explained to you. Are these beings that were channeled? Are they star seeds or star beings, or what exactly are they?
Well, there's spiritual collective frequencies. Some of them have been involved in this setup here, planet creation, connect with emotional energy, mental body. My particular ones are 10th density beings. When you go beyond the 9th, you don't have to be in duality any longer. So you can show varying aspects of androgyny. They're androgynous, and that's what happens universally, they collective. So when you get to that sort of plane, they're sort of overseers of developing cultures, planets, society, and they're instrumental in many things. And these particular beings that my soul is connected with have actually put a holographic imprint of our nature around their planet. And that's how they connect in with us. And it's also how they can see how the planet's evolving, breathing and growing, and how it's being affected by its transformational process because the Earth is conscious, but also how we're developing and moving through that. So I believe from spirit, we're actually now going backwards, they've said, in our sort of evolution, because we just don't seem to get out of that warring archetype. And this is to do with misinformation in the cells, and they're doing a lot of different things. They're doing a lot of things with the cell, the atom, and restructuring the frequency around that. And we're calling it oscillation polarity resonance. And when I first started channeling, I wasn't aware of that, and I had to get a second channeling about it. Basically, misinformation divides the cell, so it becomes unilateral. And what happens is, if you don't have the right information, cellular consciousness can't align with the truth, you see, and this is all about divine current consciousness. And most people's cells are, like I said, in that form. And because it's not swinging, there's no oscillation because everything swings in the universe. Everything keeps moving in oscillation. And that's a natural ebb and flow in our emotions, in our physical body. We see it in the waves that come on the shore every minute of every day. So everything is moving in oscillation. And because of that sort of unilateral hold, this has held us in that sort of frenetic zombie-like state where we're so stuck in survival mode in our base chakras that we just don't have time or the energy to go into self-inquiry. And that is the main issue on the planet now, is the fatigue. And grief is coming up on a global scale in most human beings. It's very, very unconscious. And this grief goes back many, many lifetimes. And this is very debilitating. And of course, the emotional body has to release itself because of this new frequency with that moving into. So coming back to the question, and I got a bit straight off there. So so basically what they're saying is it's a realm of consciousness. They said it's the new earth frequency. So if you want to call that 4D, 5D,
whatever it is,
really irrelevant. What it is us awake. So it means that we start to have impressions of the non-physical, our soul. We start to awaken on a physical level to the misinformation and how it's controlled us, making informed choices to move ourselves and the planet forward. And then we also have, obviously, the extraterrestrial community. They've always been around us. They just don't appear because we're not ready to see them. That's fine. So that's all there. We have to heal our emotional body and our ancestral line, because the ancestral energy now, and I've been noticing in the last 2-3 years, is so strong and debilitating. And the negative voice that you have every day in your head, we've all got it on some level. A lot of that is ancestral energy.
In other words, generations back, generations 2, 3, 4, whatever it is.
Long time. Yeah, thousands a year.
How did you find yourself on this path, channeling and working with the unseen world, as I like to say, because I'm pretty sure that you were raised in a family who actually worked with the unseen world. Was that a catalyst, or did you just discover that path by yourself?
It was a discovery. In our house, it was very active, shall we say, with non-physical entities from a very young age.
Okay.
So I woke to that. To be honest, that's my first memories of having that sort of experience. My family psychics and healers. So we would do a lot of rescue work. The spiritualist movement still do this in the churches, and obviously they give guided messages. And it's a very different church service than our mainstream stuff. What we would do is we do a sitting. My family would open up the space and spirits would come in and we would talk to them. There was a lot of education, helping stuck souls that didn't know they were dead or been murdered or had some trauma. So that could be scary at times, because obviously when you're small, it's sort of a very new thing. I had a lot of fear actually growing up in that sense, and it took time to overcome. So we would do rescue work, we do conversation. And then that sort of developed. Then there was a time years later when we were doing a channeling process with just my father and my mother and myself. An American Indian came through, and he was one of my mother's frequency guides, and he would teach us, and we talk on loads of stuff. And that's when I started asking about extraterrestrial life and life off other planets. And it started, obviously it's a thriving galaxy and many other things. So that was it in a nutshell. And then I sort of started to develop my intuition and psychic awareness around that. And obviously I was naturally born with it, so it helps. It's part of my contract, because I've really come here to do healing transformational work. And now I'm sort of gone into the teaching. But for years, I've just been doing one-on-ones. It's been a real experience, because it's very natural for me to talk about this. It's second nature. I saw it as soon as I opened my eyes when I was young. And so that sort of gave me the base of understanding, and I suppose the trust to then be able to work on myself. If you haven't worked on yourself or gone into your shadow self, you can only take people halfway. And I noticed that this is happening a lot, and it's a shame, because even the therapists need healing as well. And we often forget ourselves.
So shadow self, is that the same thing as shadow consciousness? And how is that related to the mirror universe? Or is the mirror universe a completely different thing altogether?
Yeah, we want to get rid of these primordial concepts of light and dark. Light and dark is the same consciousness. It's just polarized. What's happening now is it's coming together. And you could see that in COVID. There was the agenda of that and how the two energies were working together. That's the shadow component. So that is a reflection of everything that's denied in human collective consciousness, which fuels shadow beings, shall we say, that are human. And so we have an array of conspiracy theories, which Spirit said most of them are true, by the way.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So that's the shadow side. So you've got the shadow going, you've got all that stuff. I'm sure your listeners have read all the stuff about that, so I'm going to go into it. But what we're talking about is the shadow self, your dark side, your shadow, whatever you want to call it again. It's the shadow being in you. It's the ego consciousness, everything that's denied, repressed, where you self-sabotage, betrayal, where you've abandoned and denied yourself, where you've cut yourself off from the collective. And we are like that now. Human beings are very There's not a lot of merging at the moment. We just stick to our own selves. So when we talk about working with the shadow, it means bringing out the most denied aspects of your soul consciousness. And to do that, you have to access interdimensionality. Now, interdimensionality is all your timeline, Earth timeline, lifetimes. Multidimensional is you as another being in other universes, non-physical realities, blah, blah, blah. So we're working interdimensionally mainly at the moment. Human beings aren't ready to open up to the multidimensional aspect. It's just too much. And they also said, we're just too tired. We need a very simple process to transform now. You don't need another full set of rules and procedures to achieve enlightenment. And it's really about making it for the man on the street. So anyone that's struggling can come and understand universal laws, how imagination works. And imagination is the tool into the unconscious. And it's also our medical system. It's our greatest healer. Because when you put image into action, if you put fear and doubt into it, it's not going to manifest. But if there is no fear and doubt, under universal law, it must come into manifestation. And the only way that would ever be blocked if it was going to go against your soul contract. So this is really about surrendering to the soul contract. This is not about striving, struggling, using masculine energy anymore. It's about feminine and receptive. As the divine feminine is now coming back on the body, it is on the planet. And of course, we have to blend that into the body because we're running on too much fire. A lot of people now that are getting stressed. Stress is the worst thing for it. It blows out the chakras. It causes heart attacks, causes edema, the nervous system. And we need that gentle feminine water energy. So this is really a process of allowing that to sort of unwind. Now, in order to do that, you have to acknowledge the shadow self.
All right.
So when you release all those denied aspects, you will naturally start to come into alignment. So
you had mentioned a soul contract, actually more than once. Is this something you viewed during a channeling, or were you able to see a life in between lives? How did you learn about that?
Yeah, soul contract. So when you pass over, your soul will come to you, you have a conversation. Right, we need to work on this. You know, it's a sit down, basically. You're talking to yourself, another aspect of yourself. A rule set and procedure will be set out for that. You're incarnate into a country that better suits that life path and those things. And also where you're going to be able to meet other people, because you don't meet anyone new. We're not actually doing anything new. We're actually here to just resolve stuff at this lifetime now. So when they say it's free will, my understanding is free will is how you navigate your soul contract. But really, you are doing something unconscious. You think you're in control, but you're not. But you are, because it's coming from your other aspect. So it's really about surrendering. And it's not so much I have to go and seek it anymore. You just have to stop, slow down, and surrender to it. And then that frequency will move through you. And once the solar plexus is open and it intuits the third eye, and don't forget, most of these are stuck because most people have some form of inadequacy, which stifles the soul. So when the soul is blocked, you can't receive the right intuitive information. And what happens? It gets stuck in the ego. And what's the ego? Fickle, conditioned, belief systems. And this is why people struggle. Clearing inadequacy is a big part of the work, because once you intuit, then you right action. And when you surrender, everything just falls away that doesn't need to be there. It's like a click of a finger. And you'll leave jobs, you'll leave 30-year relationships. The new job will just appear. It's like, wow. And you do take a step back. When people awaken to that, the stories are quite amazing to hear. So yeah.
How do you channel this information, this new earth information, and who are these beings? I mean, do you know who they are?
Yeah, that's the Viridians I was talking about, the 10th density beings. That's my soul connection. They're more masculine. They work with masculine energy or mental energy. I channel the Algorians, which is from the star of Algor. They're the raw feminine energy. Their energy was depicted by the church a long time ago because it's raw feminine, it's very powerful. And they gave it the Medusa. So Medusa is actually the Algor consciousness.
I want to get some clarity here. Repeat that part about the feminine energy in the church.
From what I've been told by spirit as well, basically what they said to me, once feminine energy, because feminine's the 13th, it's the highest form of consciousness. Everything manifests from the black hole, which is feminine. So when that energy is in rage, nothing can stop it. There's no other universal power that's stronger than it. And so the masculine energy fears that energy, because when the feminine is unleashed, it's too powerful. The male energy cannot contain it, because the male energy under universal law is there to surrender to the will of the feminine. And it's there to carry the intention of the feminine.
I never heard that. That's really interesting, at least on a fundamental level. I don't think anything can really compare with the feminine rage anyway. I've had other speakers talk about the divine feminine and the church, and how the church has basically inverted several myths and obscured some things. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but what do we need to know in a very simple fashion about the divine feminine or the feminine energy and the masculine energy, other than what you just told us?
Yeah. Well, they've blocked it in the subconscious. So first, when you put the cross for Jesus, without a circle around it, the cross actually means conflict. So every time you look at it, your subconscious is saying, I'm in conflict. It does actually the opposite, right? That's the cross. If you put a circle around it, it's actually the balance of the fourth elements, because the circle's feminine. So it brings the balance. 666 is the carbon formula. They call it the God particle spirit, meaning it's the creative energy. So again, it's a feminine consciousness. So every time you repel the 666, you think it's a devil. No, you're repelling the feminine. And again, that's been programmed. And then you've got 13. Number 13 being the unlucky number. No, 13 is the number of the divine feminine. So those three things alone are blocking. And when they do the cross on the forehead, the baptism, that's shutting down the third eye.
Why couldn't I have figured that out? Third eye is right there, right?
Exactly.
Did the church somehow obscure this information? I'm still not really quite clear on that.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to thousands of years of keeping things secret. So it keeps the secret societies in power, and that is a very real reality. The Vatican is highly aware of extraterrestrial. I mean, apparently they've got a portal in there. They've got all of the ancient information. That's why it's locked down like a prison. They talk about fearing the non-physical entities and all the rest. And debunk our work, right? They say we're the witches, but they have their own exorcists, and it's an actual practice. And they even made a movie on it not long ago. So they are very conscious. But I don't want to debunk the church. When the church frequency changes, because there's a lot of truth, they do know the truth. So it's really about a choice. So my understanding is that when the consciousness on the planet changes, they'll turn into a more light frequency. So when the church frequency changes, that will ingrain into the subconscious as well, because everything's passed at the cellular level and it's done through imagination. So actually judging the church, judging the shadow now is detrimental to everyone's health, because we have to actually embrace that. And without the shadow component, we wouldn't have this experience of duality. There would be no experience here. So it's a fundamental training school. So we have to honor that. And I feel that the church frequency is going to change, and it doesn't need to be seen as a shadow anymore in that sense. It needs to be integrated. And then that energy will help people start to awaken as well. And so all platforms are having a frequency of consciousness brought into them so they can make informed choices. Because the planet's moving. I've been told by Spirit there will be nothing stopping it this time. It's going to shine again, because the Earth is a very special planet, according to them. And it used to shine so bright. It was the one you could really see in our galaxy. And it's a special place because the depth of emotional energy you can experience here, the depth of physical, the senses, is very intense. So we have this huge spectrum of feeling and being. There's a lot of other beings out there, but they don't get the depth. But I've always been told that the human experience is a very special experience.
Let's talk about the golden age, because I've also heard many speakers talk about what I think you're describing as the golden age as the age of Aquarius. Mm-hmm. The same thing?
Yeah.
When is it going to happen? Is it next week, next month, next century? It sounds really cool, but all this seems to be going in the same direction. Like the frequency is changing. There's a tectonic shift. We're going from this dimension to the next, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. And I'm thinking, when? Does anybody know?
Yeah. I've been told, look, it's going to be around 2070 for the planet is completely sort of back into some alignment. However, things are going to get much better since then. It's going to take a while to integrate. Aquarian age officially kicked off the beginning of 2022. So we are 15 months into it.
It's already started.
Yeah, it started, yeah. But we're right in the infancy of it. So we're not feeling the full effects, although we are, because the chaos on the planet is speeding up. Chaos rebirths. And for rebirth to occur, you need feminine energy. So the feminine energy is actually mirroring chaos. So it can explore itself out of its depths of depravity, or arise and allow itself to oscillate. So that's why we're seeing so much war and everything else that's going on, because we have to release that trauma and that energy. It's destructive, so it needs to be expressed, and then that will rebirth. So chaos always rebirths. So that's divine feminine. But the most important thing is that's taking care of itself. There's so many beings looking after this planet. Forget all the physical governments. They're not doing anything. It's the non-physical that are looking after everything. So what's going on really is that feminine frequency is coming on. It's bringing up the denied, repressed trauma, because every soul on the planet has come to their physical self and said, you need to come into self-inquiry now. Otherwise, you're out of here. That's why the death rate is pretty much going to speed up. It already has. People just dropping dead with heart attacks because the consciousness can't move through a clogged emotional body. So when energy comes into the body, it transforms into electrical charge, and it needs water to carry it through. Everyone's stuck in their base chakra. Everyone's in that survival, fear, scarcity mode. And of course, when the base chakra is blocked, it pushes the energy back up to the heart. Poof. And that's why people just drop. Healthy people, I hear it all the time now. It's crazy. You have to go in, because people are going to lose themselves. It is that despair, that anguish. It'll come up in different forms. It's very subjective. In the worst cases, it's going to cause disease and illness. But generally, mental illness will go, because mental illness really is a product of a denied emotional body to the extreme. So when that energy needs to come out of the system, it has to go in the physical body. So if the emotional body is completely blocked or desensitized, that energy will move up into the mental energy. And that's actually what the trigger for this mental illness has been. Because the Aquarian age really, the invitation of it was the 60s, as we know, but officially kicked off, like I said, 2022. These next 2 years are really important. 22, 23, and 24 are the time when, if you go into self-inquiry now, you're going to transform and you're going to ride out of this smooth.
You had mentioned before ancient civilizations like Atlantis and Lemuria, which is supposed to be even older. And I believe you alluded to the fact that we had an elevated consciousness thousands and thousands of years ago. So I guess the simple question is, this golden age that we're apparently moving into, were we already there like 10, 15, 20,000 years ago, where telepathy, for instance, was normal?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's been explained to me that we've done this many times. And I think that's why the Matrix movie was such an apt movie, because when he went in, he said, you're the 18th person to come here. And it's a mirror. So we've done this many times. A lot of people talk about Atlantis and Lemuria. We've been here a lot longer than that. Atlantis, I think, was the last civilization, I think it was about 12,000, 13,000 years ago. And Lemuria was about 35,000 years ago. But we've been here much longer than that, coming and going. So ultimately, the most advanced technology on the planet is a couple of million years old. That's all the portal systems that they found. So beings have been coming here a long time. As far as the human development, I know there were civilizations here a million years ago that were just as advanced, if not more, than Atlantis and Lemuria.
A million?
So, yeah, so it goes way back, yeah.
Are you talking about the Anunnaki or even before that, or?
Oh, yeah. They were playing here before we got here, before we came here.
Playing?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a reptilian anarchy playground, as I understand it.
What do we need to know about the star beings? Some are apparently friendly, some are apparently not. Some people seem to think that there is a star race that is trying to keep us trapped in a 3D box, and it's up to us to figure out how to break out of that. Do you believe that too, or not necessarily?
Yes, I do, but I don't talk about it a lot. We're just trying to get people to get into their emotional bodies and really work on themselves and not feed too much information, because you can actually have an information overload and that distracts you as well. But yes, there's a few races, and we all know about the reptilians, the blondes, the greys and all that. And they're all instrumental. I think there's like 22 genetic experiments going on. So there's a lot of threads of consciousness coming here. There's a lot of higher light beings that created this galaxy that are coming back to mirror back to us the reason why we came here. So everything's acting as a mirror now. As far as the negative side goes, it's not going to exist because the Earth consciousness is moving. So the Earth is saying, I'm going. If you want to come with me, you can. So that's the good. And that's what people don't talk about. The planet's moving. Okay, so the planet's evolving itself. She's coming out of her adolescence. She's reintegrating with the galactic family. Now, we programmed the Earth a long time ago to fear, and there was a lot of war here in the name of the Father. So religious war. And she carries that memory. So there was an aspect of the Earth consciousness that pushed away the galactic integration. And that's what we did as well. It goes hand in hand. We're like trees. We're made of the Earth's materials. So there's this divine connection of evolution going on behind the scenes with the planet as well. So these beings are trying to do it. But basically what they're saying is no one can intervene until we take responsibility, take sovereignty back of ourselves and our planet. That's why you've got all this green technology and all these talks now and people rallying, and there's a voice there. It's coming. But people have to work on themselves, because that's how you change the planet, is actually going into self-inquiry. That's the most important thing. Because when you go into self-inquiry, you're releasing trauma, downloading consciousness that activates your cells. So every time you walk in the restaurant, go to work, walk down the street, if the person next to you who's walking past you wants to pick up that frequency, they've got it instantly. And then that will activate them. And if there's something in them that wants to awaken, they'll go, oh, do you know what? I need to go and do a self-help course. I need to start meditating. And of course, then they go into self-inquiry naturally in their own way. But light is moved through the cells, through the cellular network. And that's how you do it. Because everyone goes, well, I'm just a builder. How can I help the planet? Work on yourself. Work on your cellular information, and you're assisting everyone. So everyone can help the planet right now just by sitting at home.
Speaking of helping the planet, how does your alignment modality, which I think is a patented modality of yours, how does that help the common man who hears all this talk about raising vibe, raising the frequency, ascension, enlightenment, whatever? How can this help the average person?
So I have all of the esoteric part of it. I can teach all that. But for the man on the street, it's simplifying. So we're taking out all the hippie stuff, all the healing words, all the new age hype, and we're using universal laws. Universal laws that Bruce Lipton uses, Einstein used, and Dr. Emoto, which is the guy that did the experiment on water. Through observation, through imagination, divine current, creating space in your imagination and acknowledgement of things are the universal laws to transform all consciousness now. So what we do is we simplify that process. And the most men, I have a lot of women clients because they're a little bit more open to this and a bit more connected to their emotions. So men are stuck in their head. So there's a lot of questioning, a lot of doubt. They put a lot of walls up. They're trying to, is this working? And so getting through to the mental energy, that's the hardest thing. So that's why we use universal laws, because men use their minds every day. So they can start to imagine something. And if they start to see results through that imagination, they go, well, that's a science, because they love science, right? They don't want the hippie stuff. They want the science. Fine. If you can prove that imagination is a science, then you activate it. And if you can show them how to breathe properly with that energy and with that imagination, those tools, and there's a few other little bits and pieces, they feel different almost instantly. And they go, okay, that's fine. Okay, I get it. Some people take a bit longer because there's still doubt, but we give them tools and techniques to sort of let that go in a very natural, subtle way, because consciousness has to be subtle to weave through the hardwired human person, because we've been so conditioned. We repel everything. Our hearts are closed in a lot of people. So simplify process to transform emotional energy, that works. And it brings in a bit of the quantum physics to explain that. I don't go too much into it because I'm not a scientist, but we put the science component in.
Last question. The beings that you channel, what do they want from us and what do they require from us in order for this shift to take place?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about self-inquiry. Just to come back onto modality, which will explain that question, they've put it in a way where, like, there's 4 modules, so each module leads to the next. So we work on the conscious mind, the ego, then we work on the shadow, then we work on non-physical communication, and then we work on cells, DNA. We go into all of that because that is the process to uncondition the mind. So that's what they've given me. They said, this is what human beings need. Keep it simple, self-inquiry, because if they're still running around with the old script, the old story, they're not going to get anywhere because the energy, the vibration is changing on the planet. And it's coming down to the atom. It's spinning faster. So if you've got a dense emotional body that's spinning this fast and you're in this new frequency, they can't exist. It's like oil and water. The only way is in. it's okay. Self-inquiry. There is nothing else you can do. Like I said, because all the answers are there. When you work on yourself, you help everyone else because your DNA, your cells, information, that's it. It's so simple. We've convoluted everything on the planet, and that's the hard thing. And they want us to come back to the simplicity, so you don't have to think. You just do. You feel and you do. And that's the process.
It sounds like it's similar to the explanation that each one of us will eventually return to perfection, but some might take longer than others. Excellent stuff, Paul. Thanks for joining us. There might even be a part 2 because this is a pretty dense subject, so we'll talk about that as well. In the meantime, how can our listeners find you online?
So just at my website, my email's on there, so www.alignmentmodality.com.
Excellent. I will put that in the show notes and the transcript as well. You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. For more info, you can go to closertovenus.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.